In a city like Rome, it's hard to make an impression. A city with thousands of years of history and culture doesn't bend easily to the whims of false idols. But for the past 2 decades, the city has been enamoured by one man who some have termed the last king of Rome. In what looks to be the final match in a stunning career, Francesco Totti has farewelled the Stadio Olimpico for the final time. A thrilling final minute win over Serie A also rans Genoa. The club secures itself an automatic Champions League berth and the opportunity to farewell a man who has spent his entire career attempting to win for just one club. And that's where the Totti legacy lies. His devotion to the club of his childhood, the club for which his son now plays, the club which made him a legend.
You know, he scored 250 Serie A goals, he's scored 307 goals for Roma, you know, across a quarter of a century. He's definitely in the top 5. I don't think you can put a top 10 best ever Italian footballers without putting his name in it. I mean, it's just unthinkable.
The dedication is even on the walls in Rome. This mural is on the school which he once attended, in the suburb where he grew up, in the city he dedicated his entire career to. But his commitment to AS Roma was given back to him tenfold by the fans who supported him from a teenager.
For my generation, Totti means football. He has always been there, ever since I started watching football.
For me, it's like a friend, more than a football player that stopped his career. So I remember each moment on his life, and I think that it gave us everything about football. We have seen with him everything that a very special football player can do. That's the problem for me, that it's difficult to find someone else that could be the same. And together with this, it's like a symbol of Rome. It's part of the city, it's part of our life, not only a football player.
In a parting message to the club, Totti said, "I will go down the stairs and enter the dressing room that welcomed me as a child, and that I now leave as a man." And after 28 years, he leaves Roma, not just with a league title, a World Cups and various plaudits as a player, but also leaves with the love of his hometown and a legacy intact.
We've already heard him there briefly in the report, so let's bring him in for more. Terry Daly joins me now live from Rome. Now, Terry, it was full capacity in that stadium for over an hour to bid him farewell after that game. And you see something like that and you ask yourself, how are the fans in the club going to be able to cope with this huge loss on the pitch next season?
Well, I think in reality, they're already coping quite well without him on the pitch. What they'll miss him as is as an icon. I think the club, Totti's been so closely linked to Roma for such a long time that he is the face of the club for many people. I mean, they finished second this year in Serie A. The team managed to beat its own records point total of 87, which is the same number of points Juventus got in 2015 when they won the league and got to the Champions League final. They've got Serie A's top goal scorer up front, who scored 29 goals this season, 39 in all competitions. So I think really him leaving now, at this stage in his career, nearly 41 years old, is really it's a huge symbolic thing, but I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on the pitch for the team.
Well, he's hinted that he could very much continue playing at least for one more year or so. But do you think that that's really a possibility? And if so, where could he likely go to play?
It is a possibility, but to be honest with you, I don't think even he really knows what he wants to do yet. He's been hanging on to the idea of having a contract extension with Roma for such a long time, and he spent such a long time sort of being vague about his future that it leads me to suggest that he's thinking about taking up the director's role that the club had offered him, working alongside new sporting director Monchi. But I think if something really appetising came along, he would definitely think about going on to play. I mean, last night in his speech, he said that if it wasn't for someone else, he probably would have carried on playing at Roma. I mean, it's a matter of fact that the club was the one that decided to stop him from playing another season. So as to where he wants to go, I mean, he hasn't as yet had any offers that that have really attracted him. There's been talk of Miami, there's been talk of Qatar, there's been talk of Dubai, but as of yet, I don't think it's anything other than up in the air.
Now, with Totti's departure, it frees up a rather handsome sum of money for Monchi, as you mentioned, the new sporting director that's come in. How successful do you see him at the club and also in Italy? And do you think that he can repeat the same level of success in terms of transfers, buying and selling players as he had at Sevilla?
Well, I think in a certain sense he's actually gone to the right club, in the sense that Roma are a kind of a buying and selling club. There's a lot of turnover, particularly in the summer transfer windows. They tend to sell off a big player each year so they can finance their own transfer window. They don't earn a huge amount of money outside of their footballing operations. Their commercial revenue is pretty low, so they have to kind of duck and dive a bit on the transfer market. So he's perfect for that because he's done it for such a long time at Sevilla with such amazing results. And I think the main priority for the club at the moment is to make sure it stays in the Champions League. I don't necessarily think that they're hugely bothered about overtaking Juventus. I mean, if they did for one season win the league, then obviously that would be great. But I think James Pallotta and the American investors really want to make Roma more of a stable financial proposition before they start going after any real on-pitch success.
Well, potentially then some very exciting times ahead for Roma. Thank you very much, Terry, for joining us.
Yeah.